Hello and welcome to House of Art. My name is Lars Bartkun. The series is about house music and dance records in general that had a serious influence or impact on my life, and which, in my opinion, are not talked about enough. This is the first episode, which I'd like to start obviously with a record very dear to my heart. It's from the year 1998 and it's called Word Sound Power by USG presents African Blues. USG stands for Urban Sound Gallery and is a production duo that consists of two very well-known producers from Chicago. By the way, I don't mention their names because both always seemed kind of uncomfortable talking about these records. I know them both quite well and always try to express my admiration for this project, but they avoided a proper conversation about it, so you gotta respect that. The record is one of 5 EPs, I guess, the duo released on a fantastic label called Clairaudience, but they also released on other labels like the French Distance and even on the legendary Prescription label. Those first 5 releases though on Clairaudience are nowadays considered as classics by those who know, yet you hardly hear anyone talk about them. If I'm correct, their most treasured EP from that time was NKMU, which was the first on Clairaudience. At least in our scene, that was the go-to record by them at the time. Fantastic one as well, like all their stuff. I think the whole time around the late 90s was such a great period for house music in general, both in the US and in the UK, just to name the 2 most important regions for that sound. It seemed like borders were broken down and the genre emancipated into something higher. There were so many ambitious, even transcendental recordings coming out which incorporated a more mature and organic sound than, let's say, the stuff from 10 years earlier. It seemed like the genre kind of grew up and allowed to incorporate a more universal message through its sound. Anyways, I chose Word Sound Power because that's the one I consider USG's most unique, most mysterious and most beautiful recording. I remember when I first heard it, of course, it was my brother Marek who introduced me to it, as always. I just got blown right into my face and thought, I want to do exactly that. And a couple of months later, I dropped out of my jazz guitar studies at the Cologne University to become a house producer myself. I also remember a couple years later when our friend Carl Injects from Atlanta played 2 copies of this piece back to back in a kind of an endless mix at our home club, Robert Johnson, on a Thursday night, I guess. It was almost a larger than life experience. So, what is so fascinating about this tune to me? I could talk about it for hours and still we wouldn't get behind the real meaning of it. It is something that I call metaphysical music. It is something much bigger than the sum of its part or ingredients. Most tunes of the genre can be described or stripped down to something like, oh, it's got this bass line, or that famous organ riff, or that lovely flute melody, or that famous syncopated 808 or 909 drum pattern, whatever. With Word Sound Power, one wouldn't get very far with that approach. The whole thing is a big wave of sound and emotion. A wave that both blows you off your feet and embraces you at the same time. It is raw and powerful, yet very subtle, very sensible and highly complex in its love for details. And the whole arrangement is such a change of moods. So let's dive right into it. It begins with this great arrangement of percussive, shakery kind of rhythms, those beautiful chords and pads on top. Very important to note, those are not cliché kind of chord progressions that you hear in your everyday house track. The truth is that these chords already change from one key to another and introduce you to the journey type of production to come. And on top of all of this is this beautifully spoken female voice. The lady is called Tina Harrell. It sounds so sweet and mysterious at the same time. And even though it has this long wave kind of character, it merges perfectly with the rhythmic and harmonic structure. Pure bliss. Also, the delay treatment that is always on the edge to total feedback and distortion creates a lovely mood. It's just excellent. It might be inspired by things like Sun Ra's Basis the Place or some Pharaoh or Sender stuff, I don't know. Wonderful conga playing, by the way. And also the reason why I later started to learn percussion myself. There are two pad sounds going on at the same time. Now the kick drum. The kick drum hits in at 1:35. And there we have this whole new track that it's transformed to. It's kind of crazy. Bass line. It's very straightforward and not based around a chord progression. This is something that I like very much. Basically, there's two kinds of bass lines. There's bass lines that outline a chord progression, which I would call the melodic approach, and it's, by the way, the approach that we at Needs used most of the times. And then there's this other approach that I don't have a name for, which is a more, let's say, tribal or simplistic approach. You have like a bass line that stands like a rock in the ocean, and no matter what's going on top of the ocean or with the waves or whatever, it stands firm in the tides, and this is the approach that we listen to here. Let's get back to it. Just check it out. See, the chord changes, but the bass line stays at the same notes. There's no reaction to the chord progression on top of it. I think it's kind of nice. I like that. I always like that. Depending on how much space you leave with your bass line, you're actually kind of free to do whatever you want on top. Do some dissonant stuff, some tonal changes are allowed, if you fill in the right space. It's a lovely effect. Be responsible for what you say. Through words and sounds, we get now to the spoken word is added a melodic line. Come with me. Beautiful. Through love, we have power. Come with me. Come with me. Vocoder bits in the background also treated by those massive delays. Beautiful. Now the bass line becomes twice as active. No space. So the whole thing becomes more energetic, intense underneath. Now we have the vocal line really establishing. African rhythm, African blues, celebrate music, live. New bass line. Now the bass line is outlining the chords. Like 4 chord and 1 chord. Boom, boom. And it's actually the bass line that was indicated in the intro, in the Beatles intro of the track. I just love those vocoders. Wow, what's this? It's beautiful.
It's funny how we don't watch
Everything together. Chords.
so quick to speak about that.
Come with me. Plus the spoken word, plus the vocoder, plus those pads.
Who's listening?
Now those famous prescription pads, steps.
Words sound
Which
powerful.
is actually kind of a boogie 80s reference. Amazing.
A person will get out of your space through a word. At first it was a word.
Anyways, these are just a couple of things I'm covering here, but I think you get the idea how much is actually going on when a song is well done and well produced, like this one here. You might get back to it and listen very closely to it yourself. There are a lot of things to discover. If you like to point out to something I haven't covered in my short analysis here, please let me know in the comments. And if you like that format, so just leave a comment or a thumbs up, and I'm sure there are a lot of tunes and tracks and productions we could cover here and find out what is so fascinating about all of this. Thanks for watching. See you next time.